My father always said I'd fail at anything I tried because I didn't have what it takes, and that everything should go to my golden brother. Since he supposedly did, I still pushed forward and succeeded in spite of him. Now he's the one begging me to hire my brother at my company. My father stood in my office doorway, the same man who once told me I'd fail at anything I tried, now holding his hat in his hands like it no longer belonged to him. "I was wrong about you," he said quietly. The words didn't sound like an apology. They sounded like surrender. Just behind him stood my brother, Daniel, the golden child, the one father had always said had what it takes. His posture was stiff, eyes lowered, like he didn't want to be seen standing there, like he didn't belong here. I remembered a different doorway. 15 years ago, I was 18, clutching my acceptance letter, hands trembling, not from fear but hope. Father hadn't even read it. He just looked at me over his glasses and said, "Don't embarrass yourself. You'll quit like you always do." Daniel stood beside him then too, smiling. Not cruelly, just confidently, because he'd never been told he was anything less. Now the silence in my office stretched between us, heavy with everything he'd said, and everything I'd become without him. I was the younger son, but in my father's eyes, I was always the smaller one. Daniel was certainty, I was hesitation. He had the firm handshake, the easy smile, the kind of confidence that made adults nod approvingly before he even spoke. Teachers praised him. Neighbors compared me to him. Father worshipped him without ever calling it that. And me? I was the one father watched with quiet disappointment. Like I was a mistake he couldn't return. When Daniel got a B, Father said it was beneath his potential. When I got an A, Father asked if the test had been easy. I learned early that effort didn't impress him, only identity did. And mine wasn't the one he wanted. At dinner, Father would talk to Daniel about business, about leadership, about legacy. I sat there too, invisible, chewing slowly, listening to a future I wasn't included in. It wasn't hatred. That would have been easier. It was dismissal, the kind that teaches you not to argue, not to hope, not to expect. So I stopped asking for his approval. I stopped explaining myself, and eventually, I stopped needing him to believe in me at all. The first time I realized Father had already chosen Daniel's future, I was 19. We were sitting in his study, the air thick with the smell of leather and old paper. He handed Daniel a small brass key. I watched the way it rested in Daniel's palm, heavy and important. "This is to the office," Father said. "You should start learning how things work." I thought he meant both of us. I waited. He didn't look at me. I cleared my throat, hoping he'd remember I was there. His eyes flicked toward me for half a second, then away like he'd checked a box. "You should focus on something simpler," he said. His tone wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was certain. Daniel didn't say anything. He just closed his fingers around the key. Another time, years later, Father introduced us to one of his business partners at a restaurant. His hand rested firmly on Daniel's shoulder. "This is my son," he said proudly. Then he gestured vaguely toward me. "And this is his brother." Not my name, not his son, just an attachment. I remember the quiet clink of silverware, the polite smile I forced, and the way Father never noticed the difference. He never had to. He'd already decided who mattered. The moment everything changed wasn't loud. It was quiet, almost forgettable. Daniel had joined Father's company right after graduation, exactly as everyone expected. He had the title, the office, the authority. I had nothing but a small desk job across town, and a cheap apartment with thin walls. One evening I came home exhausted, my hands still smelling faintly of printer ink and stale coffee. My phone buzzed. It was Father. I almost didn't answer. "You should come by tomorrow," he said. His voice was calm, rehearsed. "Daniel is officially taking over operations. It's an important milestone. Not we, not the family. Daniel." I went anyway. I stood in the back of the office, watching as Father shook Daniel's hand in front of everyone. Pride radiated from him in a way I had never seen directed at me. For a moment, something inside me cracked. Not from jealousy, from clarity. I finally understood that no achievement of mine would ever rewrite the version of me he had already accepted. And for the first time, I stopped trying to prove him wrong. Instead, I decided I would prove myself right. I stopped announcing my plans to people who had already decided my ending. Instead, I built something no one was watching. I took extra shifts, not because I needed permission, but because I needed leverage. I learned everything. The job didn't require me to know accounting, vendor contracts, supply chains. I stayed late, not to impress anyone, but to understand how decisions actually moved money. At night I studied, quietly, online certifications, financial modeling, operational strategy. Skills father had once said were too complex for me. No one noticed. That was the advantage of being underestimated. You were allowed to grow in peace. Years passed. I saved carefully, invested cautiously. When others spent, I waited. When others chased recognition, I chased stability. Eventually, I saw an opportunity, a small, struggling logistics firm whose owner wanted out. It wasn't impressive. The office was worn. The client list was thin. But it was real. I reviewed every contract myself, every liability, every risk. Then I bought it. No announcement, no celebration, just a signature on paper and a quiet transfer of ownership. For the first time in my life, I didn't need father to open a door for me. I had my own key now. The first few years were quiet. I didn't try to make the company impressive. I made it reliable. I showed up before everyone else. I learned every employee's name, every client's expectation, every weakness in the system. When something broke, I fixed it myself. Not because I had to, but because I could. Slowly, things stabilized. Then they improved. Clients stayed. Then they referred others. Revenue grew, not in sudden bursts, but in steady, undeniable lines. I reinvested everything. Better systems, better people, better structure. I never rushed. Across town, father's company looked the same on the outside. But I heard things. Vendors complaining about late decisions. Contracts quietly moving elsewhere. Some of them came to me, not out of loyalty, out of certainty. Years later, I moved into a glass building downtown. My name rested on the door in clean, simple letters. No decoration, no explanation. The day father walked into that office for the first time, he didn't speak right away. His eyes moved slowly, taking in everything he had never expected to see. Not failure, not hesitation, just proof. And for once, he didn't look disappointed. He looked small. Word spread faster than I expected, not because I told anyone, but because success leaves its own trail. Former employees of father's company started reaching out. Some were cautious, their voices careful, like they weren't sure how I'd remember them. Others were direct. They asked if there were opportunities, if I was hiring, if they could be part of something stable. They never said his name. They didn't need to. Daniel came last. He stood in my office, not sitting, not speaking at first. His confidence, the one he'd carried so effortlessly his entire life, was gone. In its place was something quieter, something uncertain. I didn't know, he said eventually. He wasn't talking about the business. He was talking about me. For years I had been invisible to them, not because I was weak, but because they never thought to look. And now they were looking, not with pity, with respect. Father's voice, once so certain, had softened. He called more often, asked about my work, listened when I spoke. But the stakes had already changed. I hadn't built this to be seen by them. I built it to finally see myself clearly. Father finished speaking and waited. He didn't demand anything this time. He didn't assume. He just stood there, older than I remembered. His hands no longer steady. Daniel needs a chance, he said quietly. You could help him. Not he deserves it. Not he's better suited. Just he needs it. I looked at my brother. For once, he wasn't standing ahead of me. He was beside me, human, fallible, real. I realized something then. I had spent years thinking revenge would feel like victory, like balance restored, like something taken from them and given back to me. But standing there, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance. I had already won long before they walked into my office. The victory wasn't in their recognition. It was in my independence from it. I'll consider it, I said calmly. Not for father, not for Daniel, for myself, because the boy who once begged to be believed in was gone. And in his place stood a man who no longer needed anyone's permission to succeed.